Hey, what's going on, Arsenal? Today, we're looking at a bold statement that Jesus made. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. Not only does he bring the dead to life, but he is the life that they experience. It's a bold claim. Actually, it got him into a lot of trouble. All of these statements that Jesus made when he used the phrase, I am, it was really a claim to deity. It caused him to get in a lot of trouble. In fact, in the last couple weeks, Pastor Chad talked about some statements that Jesus made. He said, I am the gate, I am the good shepherd. When he made those statements, the Pharisees were ready to kill him. And so he took off, he got out of there. And today we're gonna talk about how he started coming back to into that danger where he would risk death again. So this is all just part of a series. Today we're in part 5 of 7 statements that Jesus made using this phrase, I am. And just to give you an idea of where we're going today, let me give you the outline of my sermon today. It goes like this. The first thing we're gonna talk about is buddy bucks. And then we're gonna talk about doubting God, then doubting Thomas. And then we're gonna talk about a resurrection, another resurrection, and another resurrection. Then we'll talk about the shortest verse in the Bible, and then true joy. That's my outline for today. I hope you're ready to follow along with that. So buddy bucks, if you are not from the San Antonio area or close by, buddy bucks is probably a foreign concept to you. We have a grocery store, the greatest grocery store that exists, H-E-B. And in H-E-B, when you check out, they have these little buddy bucks for the kids. And what it is it's their currency that you take to a little machine and you put it in the machine, and this big wheel spins and they get points, and they can add up their points and get a prize, or they could hit an instant winner, which means you take your instant winner sticker to the business center and they give your kid a prize, right? Well, this week I was at H-E-B with my 7-year-old daughter. She's the one that always wants to go to the store. The rest of the kids, sometimes they want to go, sometimes they don't. No, this one, she always wants to go. And she's the one that is always asking for stuff. Well, this week we were in H-E-B and I was in a hurry. We had to hurry. I don't remember where I was going. We were going somewhere. We were in a big hurry. She's in the line with me and she grabs my arm and she goes, Dad, remember last time we were here, you said I could get buddy bucks and go to the machine because last time we were in too much of a hurry. And I was like, oh, I did say that. I did say that. So I said, all right, well, ask the cashier. I always call the cashiers by name. So I'm like, hey, ask her if you can have a buddy buck. And so she's like, yeah, Miss Charlene, can I have some buddy bucks, please? And so she gets them. We go to the buddy buck machine and she puts them in. And that wheel spins. And like, I'm probably the worst dad because she would love nothing more than to get an instant winner so she can go to the business center and get this like 5-inch Frisbee that's gonna end up in the garbage in 2 days, you know? And I'm just like, please don't win. Please, no. And so she goes through, and sometimes the cashiers give you like 4 buddy bucks, you know? So they're like going. Really, I guess secretly I want her to win, but also I'm not mad when they don't. So we'd play the buddy bucks. She gets a lot of points. And so it's okay, cool, we gotta go. Come on, hurry. We get out of there. But I recognized something in this moment when my daughter looked at me and she goes, Dad, you said, I knew in that moment I could not let my daughter down. I did not want to be the dad who goes, I know I said, but, right? Have you ever been on the other end of that with God? Things are not going the way that you expected them to go. And maybe you even I'm talking from experience here. Maybe you throw this sort of accusation at God. And you even quote the Bible at God, right? You quote the Bible, you go, God, you said, ask and you shall receive, and I'm asking and I have not received, right? Or even better, you misquote the Bible at God. You say, God, you said you'd never give me anything I can't handle, and I can't handle this. This is not okay. Have you been there with God, where God in this moment, and let's just be real. I've been in places where I feel like, God, you have let me down. I've been in my car, shaking my fists and yelling at God, like looking up at the sky and shaking my fists. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's no way I can comprehend in that moment how bad things are that God is actually here with me. No, he's distant. Clearly, he's not here. Clearly, he doesn't care. God, where were you when this was happening? This is not okay. And odds are many people who are watching this right now, you're there. You've been there, you're there, you will be there. This is not okay. There was this time when Jesus was walking the earth, just before he was crucified. Some of his close friends went through this. They went through this. They even said to Jesus, Jesus, if you were here when all of this started, this would not have happened. And we see it play out. We see the heart of a father, a loving father, revealed. So today, I want, wherever you're at, whatever you're going through, I want you to trust this, and I want you to get this today. You're not alone. God has not forgotten you. He has something true, something deeper, something eternal to reveal to you. So we're going to read through this story where people feel let down by Jesus himself. And if you're in that place where it's just like, God, this doesn't make sense. I don't know where you're at. I'm reading your Bible. Things are not lining up. If you're in that place, I want you to pay close attention to the way that Jesus talks here, to the things that he says, because there are moments in this story where it makes no sense. Jesus, why would you say that? Jesus, why would you do that? None of this makes any sense whatsoever. But what we're going to see is that God always has this bigger agenda. God always has this bigger plan. There's always something more that God's ready to do. So we're going to look at this story, and there's going to be a major spoiler, like right in the first line, that kind of is going to reveal the end of the story. But we find it in John chapter 11. So John chapter 11, verse 1 says, Now a man named Lazarus was sick. Spoiler alert, right? We all know what Lazarus means. A man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Now listen to this. When he heard this, when Jesus heard his friend was sick, he said, This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So bigger picture here. This is for God's glory. And then verse 5, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. He's motivated by love. So, verse 6, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. So right off the bat in this story, do you see what's not making sense here? His friend is really sick, this friend that he loves so much. He loves the whole family. These were most likely people that he saw often. This was probably a house that he stayed in. We see Mary, Martha repeatedly in the Gospels. And he gets word that his friend was sick. So what does he do? Stay where he's at 2 more days. Like already, Jesus, what are you doing? If I have the ability to heal the sick and I hear this person that I love is sick, you know what I'm doing? I'm running as fast as I can. We need to get there. We need to heal him. And it says, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. These people he loved sent for him because they knew he was the answer. They knew he could heal. They knew that Jesus had what they needed. And he stayed. Verse 7, there's another thing at play here. Verse 7, and then he said to the disciples, let us go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago, the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you're going back? So it was dangerous for Jesus there because he just went there and said, I am the good shepherd. You are going back? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this light, the world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. After this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. So they tell him, we can't go there because people are trying to kill you. And he goes, no, Lazarus is sleeping and I need to wake him up. And so the disciples respond with this, verse 12. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And now listen to this in verse 15. His friend just died, and here's what he says, talking to his disciples. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Does it almost seem cold to you? Like at first glance, looking at this, he tells them Lazarus is asleep, and then the disciples say, well, that's not a big deal. And he goes, no, he's dead, but I'm glad I wasn't there. Like, Jesus, you can't talk like that. Your friend just died. You're glad you weren't there. You're the one person on earth who could have prevented this, and you're telling me you're glad you weren't there. It feels cold. It feels distant. But why was he glad? He said, so that you may believe. Now, these were disciples that had walked with Jesus for 3 years. They had seen things. And Jesus is telling these guys, no. I have something bigger to reveal for you. Something bigger. There's more. And this horrible situation is totally worth it. I'm glad I wasn't there. Then Thomas, good old doubting Thomas, said to the rest of his disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Thomas is coming through here. Thomas gets a bad rap. We know Thomas as doubting Thomas. This is kind of a side note, really doesn't have anything to do with where I'm going. But we got to talk about Thomas here because Thomas gets a bad rap. He gets called doubting Thomas because of one moment that he really didn't even deserve the term then. What if we labeled Thomas according to like this? When Jesus is like, we need to go to this place where they want to kill me. And Thomas is like, hey, let's go too. We're all going to die. Let's do this thing. What if we remembered Thomas for this brave moment? What if we remembered people for their best moments and not their worst moments? What if you thought about yourself according to your best moments and not your worst moments? And would that change outlook a little bit? Would it change daily life? If we didn't define ourselves and others by our worst moments? Side note over, back to our story. Jesus says we're going to Judea. We need to go to Bethany. And we're going to go see Lazarus, who's dead. So verse 17, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus. And this is the moment I think we can all relate to. We've all had these moments where it's like, God, where were you? Martha runs out to meet Jesus. And she says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. So here's this exchange here, right? Martha says, Jesus, you should have been here. And he says, your brother's going to rise again. And she goes, yeah, I know there's an afterlife. I know there's a day when we'll all rise together. I know I'll see him again after this. I know there's a resurrection after this, an afterlife. And Jesus makes this statement. He doesn't correct her. He doesn't go, no, I'm talking about something different. Let's go raise him from the dead. No, Jesus makes this statement in this moment where she's saying, yeah, I know in the future. He goes, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. She knew what he was asking because watch how she responds. She says, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world. Here's Jesus on his way to raise a man from the dead. And he stops to have this conversation with the man's sister. She's grieving. I mean, if you've lost someone, you know how crushing this is. In this moment, Jesus stops to have this conversation. And I'm going to tell you this, I believe fully this. This moment, this conversation is the focal point of this whole story. Not Lazarus raising from the dead. A lot of times we read this story and it comes to the end and then Lazarus raised from the dead and everything's all better. No, there's a bigger picture here. Jesus is revealing something so much bigger. He says, do you believe? And she says, I believe you are the Messiah. This statement, I am the resurrection and the life, is the focal point of this story. Now, of course, after this, Jesus goes and he raises Lazarus from the dead, right? He talks to Mary. Mary says the same thing that Martha says. She says, if you were here, Jesus, this wouldn't have happened. He goes on and he raises Lazarus from the dead. There's our first resurrection. Days later, Jesus would be crucified, and he himself would raise from the dead. There's our second resurrection. And so we see these things. We see the way Jesus is working in this, and we see these difficult circumstances that people are going through. And Jesus is there, and he's pointing them to an eternal hope. He raises Lazarus, healing and addressing the need in the moment, but he's also pointing them to something bigger in the future. he makes this statement, I am the resurrection and the life. And so know this, Jesus is more than comfort for difficult circumstances. And he's actually even more than this eventual eternal life. Because a lot of times we endure these circumstances that we're in and we go, oh, one day Jesus is going to come. One day we're going to have this eternal life. But Jesus is life now. You've been spiritually resurrected. Life is now. You are the third resurrection in this story. Look at Colossians 3, 1 through 4. It says, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things, for you died, and your life is now hidden in Christ with God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. You were spiritually crucified with Christ, and you have been resurrected to new life. Here's the big question. If I've already been resurrected to this new life, the old has died, how do we experience this? How do we walk in this? How do we know this? How do I feel this? How do we experience Christ's life here and now? The answer is simply trust that it's true. Stop doubting and start trusting. We set our minds on things that are above. See, this is not about what you must do. It's about learning to trust who Jesus is and what he's done. Instead of dying to self, trust that the old was crucified with him, as the Bible teaches us. Instead of trying to make peace with God, trust that Jesus has made peace with you, as the Bible teaches us. Instead of trying to earn forgiveness, trust that you have been given this free gift of grace, as the Bible teaches us. The resurrection and life that you seek is already yours. And it's found in trusting the work of Jesus. Because he is resurrection and life. And you have him. You have more than hope in an afterlife. You have life because you have Jesus now. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't still experience pain. I kind of don't even need to say that, right? It doesn't mean we don't experience pain. But it also doesn't mean that God doesn't care about your pain. In fact, we see this play out in this story of Lazarus. Because right before Jesus goes and raises Lazarus from the dead, after he has this conversation with these two sisters, and before he raises Lazarus from the dead, something happens. Now keep in mind, Jesus has known for days what he was going to do. He knew before he even went that Lazarus had already died. He knew before he even went that he was going to raise him from the dead. He said early on, this will not end in death. This will not end in death. Jesus shows up and he's dead. I mean, people must have been looking at Jesus, the disciples, going like, Jesus, you said it wouldn't end in death, and I'm here and he's dead. It's been 4 days. I mean, if you knew you could raise someone from the dead, what would your attitude be like? Because I know mine, right? If I knew, I wouldn't be like, oh man, hey, everybody doing okay? Let's stop and have a conversation. I'd be like, where's the dead guy? Let's get this done. Watch this, everybody, right? It's not what Jesus does. He stops and he says, Mary, Martha, there's a bigger picture. There's something bigger than the resurrection of your brother. There is me. I am resurrection. I am life. So what does Jesus do? John 11:35, the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. He wept, he grieved. He felt the pain. Knowing that very soon this whole thing would be over, knowing that very soon their hearts would be healed, what did he do? He wept with them. These sisters who lost their brother, they were hurt. They were even lashing out at Jesus. And what does he do? Knowing that he's about to raise him from the dead, he takes the time to grieve with them. See, God doesn't look past our pain. He doesn't just say like, hey, no, everything's going to be okay. Just ignore the pain. No, he knows it's real. Knowing that there's hope in the future doesn't mean God is calloused to your pain. And he doesn't expect you to be either. But because of this, because Jesus is life, he's with you in your pain. Because Jesus is your life, he is with you always, in your pain, in your happiness. And when you set your mind on that, on who Jesus is, that is where you find true joy. Joy in your pain, joy in your happiness. This joy is encompassing all of life. As you go throughout this week, especially when things are not making sense, when you hit those moments where it's like, God, where are you? When things don't make sense, know this, life is not just far off in the distant future. Life is now, and that life is found in trusting Jesus. Arsenal, I love you guys so much. My hope is that you experience the life and the joy that Christ brings. Not to ignore your pain, but to go through your pain and through your happiness, through your good moments, through your bad moments, through your confusing moments. Always Christ is life. He's brought you to life. You were crucified with him. You've been taken to new life with him. Christ is your life, and he's with you always. Love you guys. And man, I really hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Hey, before we get going, I just want to let you know that we do this thing called The Chat over on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 4 p.m. You don't want to miss out. It's a time where Pastor Rob and Chad get together and just talk about things that are like, pretty deep to things that are like quite silly. And then on top of that, you're able just to kind of chime in and give your thoughts and just kind of maybe even ask questions that you maybe have on your mind, on your heart. And they'll do their best just to kind of answer those things for you. And with that being said, I want to let you know that here at the Arsenal, we love you, we care for you, and we hope you have an amazing week. Thank you so much for hanging out.